You know, there are people
Definitely.
from lots of different places. So like, if you can get by with your English and do your job well, you don't really need to have perfect English. People just don't get it, and it's the fact that Ireland is not really a very touristic place. And I love that.
In Accenture, maybe you are a number, and in a startup, maybe you are more like a name or like a person.
The drinking culture.
Okay.
That's something that I absolutely dislike.
Hola YouTube, mi nombre es Marc, bienvenidos al canal y en este vídeo tenemos una invitada con mucho recorrido en Irlanda. By the way, this video is gonna be in English because Elaine here doesn't speak Spanish, she's from Brazil. How are you, Elaine?
Oh, good. Thanks for having me, Marc.
Solo un pequeño apunte, no me voy de Irlanda por ahora, solo hice un vídeo, una pequeña reflexión que os la dejo por aquí. Tenéis aquí arriba si la queréis ver, pero no me voy, solo era una reflexión que es triste el hecho de que te dé miedo volver a tu país, ¿no? Eso significa que algo está mal. But let's focus on the video of today. Elaine, 10 years in Ireland, such a long and fulfilled experience here, as in jobs, as in how Ireland evolved. How are you? Introduce yourself.
Yeah. Hi everybody, my name is Elaine. I am from Brazil originally and I moved to Dublin 10 years ago, so in 2014. It's kind of crazy to think back and realize that has been a whole decade of living here is such a long time, but I guess it's a journey that doesn't feel that long, if I can put it that way. I think like there is a lot of like things happening, especially when you move to a new country where everything is different. So like, adaptation to the new cultures is just like takes such a toll on yourself. It takes a lot of energy, but yeah, I think right now I can call this place home.
Mm-hmm. Elaine and me used to work together. That's how we met. And during that time, now Elaine is working somewhere else. I spotted that she was a good candidate to be interviewed for the channel. Like,
oh, thank you.
Tell us a little bit, how many job experience have you had in Ireland?
Sure. Yeah, I don't know from the top of my head number-wise, but it has been a few. I guess during my first few years, I wasn't really much confident about my English. So like when I first moved here, I worked in a cafe for a couple of years. And then once I felt like my English was improving, I got a job in a department store, talking to customers. And then, I got to kind of like practice a lot of my English. After that, I was still not very happy with my English. So then I decided to move in with an Irish family, so I worked as a nanny for about 3 years, and I think that part of my life was like really significant, and I felt like I learned so much, not only about Irish culture, but also my English has improved a lot during that period, because all I did was like listen to English all day, so it was great. Yeah.
You got used also to the Irish accent.
Definitely,
the Irish.
Yeah. I think I'm lucky because the family that I lived in with, they are from Dublin. So if you guys live here, you might understand like that there is like different kind of like accents depending on the region of Ireland that you're from. And I find that the Dublin accent usually is the easiest to understand. It really depends as well on what kind of part of Dublin city the person is from. Yeah. But it was a great experience. That family is, I consider them my family right now. So like if there is any problems, I can always reach out to them and they're like gonna be there for support me. And then after that period is when I was way more confident with my English and I started to look for jobs in more kind of like in the career path that I wanted to go in. And at the time it was tech. I already had a technical background from Brazil. And I wanted to find something kind of similar here. Mm-hmm. So then,
how long were you in Ireland at that time? Like 3 years, 2 years?
At that time, I think it was about 3.5 years.
3.5.
Yeah, I was just after like I renewed my visa 3 times as an English student. Yeah. For Brazilians at the time, like I didn't really have like European passport, so I had to be on a visa. And then once I finished with that visa, I was able to get a job that kind of like I had a stamp for at the time, so it was just easier, for me to work full time, and that was when I started working for a cafe company. It was Nespresso at the time. Okay. I spent about 3 years with Nespresso then.
Ooh,
it was quite nice.
The point why I ask you about the years is because sometimes people that watch the videos and want to come here the issue they found is that they want to escalate and evolve so fast, you know.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
see, you were here 3.5 years, improving your English, setting in the country.
Yeah,
So
I
it's
think, like-
important to know that sometimes things cannot be as fast as you want.
Yeah, and I think like everybody's personal story is different because you know life has different path for each person, and also it really depends on the person kind of development for English. Like in my case, when I moved here, I had no English whatsoever. I did some courses back in Brazil, but because we're not really practicing it, you really don't know how to speak, you know. So like when I moved here, like I consider myself like I don't know anything other than hi and bye, you know.
Okay.
So for me, it took about 3.5 years to just get to the level where I wouldn't be scared anymore. I would probably go to the store or to a coffee shop and order a cafe and it'd be fine. If somebody asked me a follow-up question, I think like there is a lot of fear, especially when you're not native English speaker. You know, you go someplace, you order something, you have the fear of people just asking you follow-up questions and you not understanding it. So for me, I was at the level that was very comfortable, you know.
So then, 6 years more or less, no?
Yeah.
You jump to a tech company, so it could be like an orientation for a person that doesn't know English at all, that this is doable with
100%.
some years.
Yeah.
So 6 years you jump in Accenture where we met.
Exactly. And I think it's very important to note as well that like lots of company, of course, like English is very essential if you're living in an English speaking country, not only if you're living in any countries. But I think it's very important to also point out that like lots of tech companies in Dublin at the moment as well is very international. You know, there are people from lots of different places. So like if you can get by with your English and do your job well, you don't really need to have perfect English. I think that's very important. It's something that for me at the time, I didn't really know. I was like, oh no, I need to have perfect English to be able to work in tech. And it's actually not the truth.
Yeah, that's a good point actually, because sometimes people will not try it because they are afraid that their language is below expectations. And
Definitely, yeah.
it's worth trying. In terms of salary, how has been your evolution in Ireland? Was it always like this, or sometimes how have you seen it, and how much do you value salary? Or
yeah, I think like salary is kind of like is a complicated topic because it really varies depending on the industry that you're in. I think like when I compare my retail jobs to my technical jobs, you can definitely see a massive shift in salary. It does increase quite a bit. But also there is another thing that we need to consider is like Ireland is a pretty expensive country, you know, generally, like it's one of the most expensive capitals in Europe. So finding jobs, especially when you need to have like specific like certifications or degrees, can be quite challenging, especially the ones that pays well. But in my experience, like with my own job, like I was never able to find something in my kind of like specific career that I had back home because it's not an industry is possible here. It's like the fashion industry. It's something that's really non-existent here. So I had to shift a little bit and move into tech. And I think from my experience here, the salaries can be really good, especially if you have like very niche skill, like data skills or very, very technical skills as well. The salaries can be quite good.
Mm-hmm. To finish with your job path, so you were in Accenture for 2-3 years?
For about almost 4 years.
4 years?
Almost 4 years. It was short of 4 years.
Okay, in the tech world, would you find the goods and the pros and the cons?
Mm-hmm.
And then you switched to a company smaller, no?
Yeah, so I made a move just end of last year. I just decided to just move into something a bit more small, and I moved into a startup company. They are very small. They have about 100 employees. They are an Irish-based company, and I think I have many different reasons for that, but I think for me, I just wanted to have exposure to something that's a bit different. I am someone who always kind of like really like the idea of like owning my own businesses. This is something that I have been kind of like brainstorming over the years. So when that opportunity came up, I thought it would be a good experience for me to just get like skills that would be valuable for me to just input into my own kind of projects. So I have been working for a software company in Dublin. They're very small, and it has been a great experience. It comes with like its challenges. Is quite busy, and especially when you're a startup, things just happens all the time and changes all the time. But so far the experience has been awesome, and I have met so many incredible people as well.
So obviously the main reason to change was this approach, which was more, let's say, focused on what you want to do next and building your own company. It was more aligned in terms of what you do now.
Exactly.
But was it also that typical story of in Accenture maybe you are a number, and in a startup maybe you are more like a name or like a person?
Yeah, I think like there is its differences. I do feel like if you're working for a massive company with thousands and thousands of employees, it can be like that. You can feel sometimes like you're a number, and like maybe sometimes like the work that we do, it just doesn't get anywhere. It's hard for you to just see, like how much of like your time and dedication get somewhere. And I think like in a startup company, it is easier for you to just feel like in the control of your job and duties and and your projects as well, definitely. But I think like the main reason for me is like I wanted the change of scenery. I wanted the experience that comes with working with a startup company, the closeness that you get to people and teams and how everybody kind of works together. I want all of that, and I also wanted, like, to be very honest, just get to know people a little bit better, and I feel like it's just much easier when you work with small teams. You get closer, and I think like so far my experience with this company has been just that.
Tell us a little bit, like, what's the thing that you like most about Ireland? What's the thing that you dislike most?
Yeah, I guess like what I love the most about here is the nature, and I think like that's just so easy for me to say it because I don't think I have ever seen a place that's so green, and I think like the shade of green that we have in Ireland is very special. It's just beautiful all year round, and it's nice for you to be able to see the seasons kind of change. It's like autumn and spring and then summer, and the nature just change with that. Also, another thing that I love, and I think like in Europe in general, I think that specific thing about Ireland is a little bit kind of, people just don't get it, and it's the fact that Ireland is not really a very touristic place. And I love that. And the reason for being is like, I consider myself an introvert. So for me, it's a place where I have peace. There isn't really like that amount of tourist people. You might see tourism here and there in Dublin city center, yourself, but it's usually very peaceful, and I really like that. And I think it makes the place just a bit more private, because if you go to any other European capitals, it's crazy.
Okay.
Let's agree.
After interviewing many people, I would say I never got this input, so
yeah.
It's interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
When people ask me, why don't you move somewhere more exciting in Europe? I'm like, I think it's because I like peace.
Okay,
I like
nice.
to be left alone, and this is the perfect place for that.
And the worst thing?
I think the worst thing I would say is definitely the weather. Like the weather can be hard. Like right now we are in summertime, so it's just great to just have those days that we can just wear like a t-shirt. But like most part of the year, that's not really possible. So, and it rains a lot as well. And then if you remember, sometimes it's very hard to kind of like remember that we live in an island. Even myself, sometimes like we are surrounded by water, nothing else. And because we don't have the weather for it, it doesn't feel like that. But when it's summer here, the weather gets really nice, and then you feel like, okay, this is actually an island. You get the breeze of the sea. So I think like to just put it there is definitely the weather, and I think the second thing, it would be a little bit more cultural, and that for me is the drinking culture.
Okay.
That's something that I absolutely dislike, and I think it's just here is just a little bit too much. So sometimes you just kind of like, if you don't drink,
you cannot
it's really hard. It's really hard to socialize, especially because the weather is not always favorable. Like it's not like you can do a lot of stuff outdoors. So it's hard to socialize if you don't drink. So I think this is something to keep in mind if you guys are planning to move here and you don't really have a drinking habits. It can be hard.
Okay, I like, because the weather, that's very common, but then you point out something that other people would not highlight, so interesting. Okay, you mentioned that in Ireland there is peace, that you feel peaceful. What about safety? Like, do you feel safe in Ireland? What's your experience on that?
Yeah, I think like it's pretty safe in general. Obviously, there is casualties and things happens every here and there, but mostly I think when it comes to safety, as somebody that comes from a major city like myself, I come like from São Paulo city, there is just something that like makes me at peace here, and for me it's like being able to just walk home and be distracted, listen to a podcast with my phone on my hand, and not have to worry about anything. In Brazil, this is something that's just not possible. There is no way you can actually just be walking around and scrolling on your phone, or not only for the reason of like maybe getting your phone stolen, but like you never know if somebody's like following you or if somebody tries to attack you. So I feel pretty safe here, definitely.
Okay. And the evolution of Ireland in these 10 years, have you noticed something
Major evolution.
Yeah, to the bad, to the good,
I think
depends?
Mostly to the good. I think like, generally to the good. I think like when I moved here 2014, there really wasn't that much stuff like, and I'm talking about like food, you know, kind of like food, kind of arts and kind of cafe, things like that, bars. I think it was smaller, you know, this specific scene.
It was even too peaceful for you.
Yeah, I guess so. I think it was, maybe we can just put that like, maybe it was a bit too boring. And now we're just moving to something a little bit more fun and exciting. And, you know, you can see like new businesses opening here and there, new cafes that are really cool, new restaurants, especially if you like diverse cuisine. You can find everything. You can find Indian, you can find Spanish, you can find all kind of like cuisines here, and like really good authentic cuisines as well. So I think definitely has moved into a really good direction. If there is something that I can point it out as well, is just kind of like the, you know, public transportation, for example. It has improved. I know that sometimes we think like, oh my god, it's still shit. Yeah, it's still quite cheap, but it has improved a lot, because 10 years ago it was like, it was so bad. A
positive approach.
Yeah, we have an app now. You can actually check the bus on the app. 10 years ago, we didn't have that. So.
Like live, no? In real time and see where it...
Yeah, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Like this morning, it didn't work for me. I literally lost my bus because it just disappeared into the app, but usually it works.
Because you were mentioning that Ireland now has a lot of more to do, and one of the things that people complain maybe about Ireland is that this fact, like that it can be boring, it lacks maybe amenities or I don't know, activities. So you would support the idea that it's active, like you feel that there is much to do?
It's kind of hard for me just because, like, as for everybody experiences, because I think people has different lifestyles and, you know, they like to do different stuff. I'm specifically talking about my lifestyle. I am like more on the calm side. I really love nature. I love like going for walks or going to the beach or going for a hike. So I think there's plenty of stuff to do if you're more adventurous, if you're like more kind of like an outdoor person that doesn't really mind the wet weather. There's loads of things to go in that regard, loads of beautiful places to go. But if you're somebody who likes, like for example, I love art and I love art galleries, is one thing that for me is just like, I just love it. I would spend hours into a museum. And I think here I have probably gone to all the museums that we have around Dublin City thousands of times, and I have seen probably every single exhibition, and because they're not big and there aren't really that many new stuff going on, you know, so definitely like if you like culture stuff, like especially arts and museum, I think it lacks a little bit of that kind of thing. And I guess, you know, shopping as well, I think we lack a little bit of like, if you compare to other European capitals where you can have like those major streets full of like different shops and different brands. Here is just a very small scale of that. Like we lack some amenities in that regard. But yeah, I mean, we can have everything. We can be a perfect country.
Okay. Any story worth telling?
Yeah, I don't think I have many stories like bad or either good. I think like overall my experience has been very positive, and I think like as a person, and I have grown a lot like since I moved here. I definitely changed who I am, my values, my perspectives in life. I guess like what's worth for me to just kind of like sum up is like, if any of you are considering moving here, or if you already are and maybe you feel like you're unhappy, maybe the place is not for you, I guess it's just like take things as a sign. And I think that has always been my approach when I moved here. I just took every year as it came. I kind of like stopped kind of planning too much ahead. And I think like sometimes people just want things to just happen in a very fast and a very speedy way. And life is just not like that. I think we just need to trust the process and accepting as you go, and also just opening yourself for the experiences, because I do feel like Ireland can be a home and is a home for me. And I'm just so proud of like have become an Irish citizen. It's a place that I love, and it's a place that has accepted me. And I know that like it's a place that's gonna accept many other peoples as well. And I guess it's just like keep going on and you know, and opening up yourself for the opportunities and for people, and putting yourself out there even if it's uncomfortable. I have put myself in very uncomfortable situations, you know, with my English, with like jobs, with, you know, everything. So friendship, but I think all those experiences I do not regret because it just brought me to where I am today.
That's a nice conclusion. Is there anything else you would like to add, like some recommendation, advice, or?
Sure, I think there is just one thing that just came up to mind, and I get it is a little bit, it ties up a little bit with all the points that we just talked about how it can be a little bit boring for some people, it lacks a little bit of amenities to some people. If there is one thing that maybe I can put out there, and if you are watching this video and you have been somebody who always wanted to just explore and opening your own businesses, I guess you guys can just take the lack of things to do as an opportunity to just do something to fix the lack. And if there is something from my own experience, like as somebody who is kind of like working in on opening my own business right now, is that this country is very open to new ideas and very, very acceptable of like new places and new businesses. So I guess lack for me translates into opportunities.
Nice. So do you see yourself in Ireland for more years?
I guess so. I mean, I am part of Ireland right now, so it's my home country. I'm a citizen, so I do want to continue living here for a few years. I want to be able to just have my kids and raise them here, but definitely maybe if I think far in the future, I would love to just retire somewhere sunny. So I would, yeah.
Okay.
Like,
so we are talking long term.
Yeah,
very long term.
Yeah, very long term. I would just love, like, maybe I want to retire early. So like I want to be able to just maybe buy a house in Spain or Portugal or Italy when I'm like 50, and just being in the sun all day, just growing tomatoes on my back garden. That sounds like the dream.
Amazing,
Yeah.
amazing. So I appreciate very much your
Thank you, Marc.
interview in my channel.
That was
I
amazing.
hope you enjoy it.
Thanks for having me.
Consider giving a like for Elaine.
Thank you guys. Give a like for Marc.
Y como siempre, nos vemos más pronto que tarde o más tarde que pronto con un nuevo vídeo.
Under the water.